He's been dead for 40 years, but the mystery surrounding Sonny Liston's life as well as his death still fascinates boxing fans of all ages. Tonight, a man who spent a quarter of a century digging in to the real story behind the Ali-Liston fights. Next, on a special edition of Ralston Reports.
And now, Ralston Reports with Jon Ralston.
Welcome to Ralston Reports. It's been almost 50 years since Sonny Liston failed to come out for the 7th round of his heavyweight championship bout with Muhammad Ali, and then was felled by a phantom punch in the main rematch. But the fascination lives on. Did he take a dive in the second fight against Ali? And if so, why? That's one of the questions answered, or at least tried to be answered, in Sonny Liston, the real story behind the Ali-Liston fights. Joining me, the man who spent a quarter of a century researching and writing, Paul Gallender. Sir, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, John.
You know, it says in the inside book jacket of this book, the real story behind the Ali-Liston fights, that you wrote this book for Sonny Liston. Why?
Well, it didn't start out that way. In the late 70s, I just realized that the man hadn't been done justice, that he was a great fighter, and that really only Muhammad Ali deserved to be in the same ring with him in terms of talent and ability. And the closer I got to Sonny Liston, the more I talked to people who knew him. Like the last couple of years before I finished this, I started to get very emotional, and I realized this is more for Sonny than it is for me. I mean, I consider it a really good accomplishment on my part. But Sonny deserves a lot better than he's gotten, and that's why I wrote it for him.
You know, it's interesting that you say that, because there is an amazing amount of research in this book. You clearly took a long time to do it, and you wanted to do it right. You wanted to do it to give, as you say, justice to Sonny Liston. On the other hand, this is an unvarnished portrait of the man. This is not a gauzy, hagiographic biography. I mean, this is the man, warts and all, in this book.
Well, yeah, and Sonny was no saint, and there were a lot of things that he did that were not particularly good, and I'm sure he felt bad when he did them. But he evidently had no control over it, particularly when he had been drinking. When Sonny was drinking, it brought out the best of him, just like it brings out the worst in him, just like it brings out the worst in anybody who does excessive drinking. And he did some things which are unconscionable. But the two of the main things that I wanted to put forward in this book are that, one, that the results of the two Ali-Liston fights had far more to do with what took place outside of the ring than in it. And second, that Sonny Liston was no less than the second best heavyweight of all time. The other thing was that Sonny Liston is very misunderstood, and what the world knows about Sonny has very little basis in fact.
Second best of all time to Ali, in your opinion?
I think he was more talented than Muhammad Ali. I can make that case. But yeah, I don't see anybody standing up to the man over a 15-round fight if he was in shape and he wasn't injured. In spite of the fact that in the 1960s he was already in his 40s.
Yeah, exactly. He was older when Ali fought him. People, you know, he was almost twice Muhammad Ali's age at that time.
I believe he was probably twice Muhammad Ali's age. I think he was probably born in 1919.
It's interesting. I want to talk about each of those fights, because there's a lot of myth-making that you try to bring the truth to in this book. But as I read the early parts of this book, and Sonny Liston had a tough childhood, and he went to prison for a while, and you describe him in ways that sound like he was almost, and this may be a stretch, and you can walk me back on this, animalistic, in the way that Mike Tyson was described early in his career. Do you see any analogy there at all?
Well, yeah. I think Sonny probably overcompensated. He had a lot of anger in him, and he really resented when people treated him badly, when they made fun of him, because he mispronounced a lot of words. He was not a literate man, but he was a smart man.
Yeah, you talk about how smart you think he was, even though he wasn't very well educated, wasn't very articulate, spelled things wrong, said things wrong.
Former light heavyweight champ and journalist Jose Torres said he had never met a professional athlete who was more intelligent than Sonny Liston. But when you can't read and you can't write, there really is no way to measure your intelligence. But he took it out on a lot of people. He did, and he knew he could get away with it. But a lot of the times that he would scare people to death, he did it just because he knew he could. just because that was fun for him.
You talk about his sense of humor in the book too, and I think that's one of the things you think was misunderstood. He likes screwing with people. He likes screwing with people like the great sports writer Liebling, and there's a very vivid scene that you describe in the book when he takes out a gun and the guy hides behind him.
Right, and Liebling said Sonny shot a blank-filled pistol at Joe Polino, who was standing behind Liebling. And Liebling fell backwards, spilled his tea, and he later admitted to Harold Conrad, the publicist, on the ride back to Chicago, that he had believed all the stories were true about Sonny because of his prison record, so he actually thought the gun was loaded. He thought Sonny might be crazy.
And he wasn't the only one, as you point out in the book. What do you think, as you were doing your research, you said you wrote it for Sonny, you said he was misunderstood. What is the single biggest myth that's out there about Sonny Liston, that when people read this, they'll say, wow, that's not true about him?
Well, it's got to be the Ali rematch in Lewiston, Maine, because when Sonny went down and did it in such a bad way. I mean, if you were going to throw a fight, most people thought, why would you look that badly? And
we have that up now. We have some footage from that, but go ahead.
And at the time, every person involved in boxing knew Sonny had taken a dive, and they were nauseated by it. They just didn't know why he had done it. But now, with probably 50% of the population that was born 1960 or after, all that they know about Sonny is that iconic photo of Sonny lying on the ground that was Neil Leifert took of Sonny, with a very ferocious-looking Muhammad Ali standing over him. A very uncharacteristically ferocious-looking Ali, because Ali knew that he hadn't punched him hard enough for him to go down. He was screaming at him, "Get up, you yellow bum, nobody will believe this." When Ali walked back to his corner, he told his cornerman, he laid down. So people base their opinion of Sonny's ability on the two Ali fights, and particularly on the second fight. And what I want to know, based on that logic, why isn't Muhammad Ali evaluated solely on his really miserable performances against Larry Holmes and Trevor Berbick, who were nowhere near the fighters that Muhammad Ali was, even back in 1964?
But it wasn't as bad as that. I mean, listen, I'm not a boxing aficionado, but I'm certainly a boxing fan. I've been to plenty of matches. I've seen that infamous Phantom Punch. That looks like a dive. You're saying it wasn't a dive?
No, it was a dive.
It was a dive.
Oh, it was a dive. Sonny took the first opportunity he could to go down, because...
So what's the myth that's not understood about that, why he took the dive?
Well, people didn't know why. I mean, there are people who, like Ali biographers today, who say, oh no, that was a valid punch. Gene Kilroy says, oh no, he knocked Sonny Liston down and out. Well, people say that because they either want to build up Ali or tear down Sonny Liston. But the fact is that Sonny Liston's wife and child were being held against their will. They were kidnapped by the black Muslims, who told Sonny, if you want to see them again, you have to lose this fight.
This is an amazing story, and you tell in the book. We have to take a break. When we come back, let's talk more about that, and we'll talk about what really is a tragic story of Sonny Liston. Stick around.
Have a question or comment? You can email Jon, RalstonReports@gmail.com. And now, Ralston Reports.
Welcome back across Nevada to Ralston Reports. We're taking a departure, and a pleasant departure, away from politics tonight to talk about something that has mystified boxing fans for many, many decades, and that's the life and death of the great Sonny Liston. Paul Gallender worked more than a quarter of a century to get the truth out in a new book that's called Sonny Liston, The Real Story Behind the Ali Liston Fights. Let me read to you about, because we started talking about the second fight. I didn't want to get to that right away, but you started talking about it, and it's really interesting. A number of theories have been floated about that second fight. As you know, Liston was in debt to the mafia, threw the fight to pay it off. He was afraid black Muslim extremists angered Ali over a falling out with Malcolm X might kill him by mistake. But sports writers like Tex Mall of Sports Illustrated, Lou Eisen, and others are certain the one punch in question was more than enough to take out Liston, who was older and out of shape. This is from Time magazine. In his cover story in the June 7, 1965 issue of SI, that's Sports Illustrated, for example, Mall wrote that, quote, the knockout punch itself was thrown with amazing speed that differentiates Clay, as he was still called, Cassius Clay, then by most in the media, from any other heavyweight. He leaned away from one of Liston's ponderous pawing left jabs, planted his left foot solidly, and Ralston whipped his right hand over Liston's left arm and into the side of Liston's jaw. The blow had so much force, it lifted Liston's left foot, upon which most of his weight was resting, well off the canvas. Quote, he knocked out Big Sonny Liston, the magazine asserted elsewhere in the same issue, quote, with a punch so marvelously fast, excuse me, that almost no one believed in it, but it was hard and true. You're chuckling.
Yeah, Tex Small was a mean-spirited person. And basically nobody liked him. But that article, he said there was no doubt, absolutely, that Sonny had been knocked out. Muhammad Ali was not a puncher. I remember when I talked to Eddie Futch, the great trainer, he was talking about that fight, and he says, Ali was not a puncher. Please believe me. I've got it on tape. Ali was not a puncher, and I know he wasn't.
Well, anyone who's watched Ali knows that's not what he was known for.
He was pulling back, he was on his toes, and it was a 6-inch punch. Now, a 6-inch punch, properly situated from a good fighter like Sonny Liston, could knock somebody down. But Sonny dropped his left hand, and he was inviting the punch. The backdrop prior to Sonny's wife and son being kidnapped was that, yes, Malcolm X had been assassinated, and Elijah Muhammad had really broken from Malcolm X. Ali was very close to Malcolm X, but he sided with Elijah Muhammad. When Malcolm got assassinated, that very night there was a fire in Ali's apartment, and his wife at the time thought that the Muslims were sending a clear message to Ali that he should not get out of line. There is so much information in terms of the fear that was palpable about the assassination rumors, both in Boston and then in Lewiston, Maine, when the fight got moved, that that Muslims that were loyal to Malcolm were coming to Maine to assassinate Ali. And Sonny believed him. Ali believed him. And there's a lot of quotes in the book out of their own mouths, obviously, that support that. And there were a couple of quotes that Sonny said to reporters. He said, well, what's there for me to worry about? They're coming to get him. And then shortly after that, Sonny says, they're coming to get him, not me, right? So Sonny was afraid of, he couldn't understand Muslims, and he was afraid of crazy people. And he thought Ali, and he thought Muslims in general were crazy because he just couldn't understand them. The real tragedy was that the originally scheduled rematch was set for November 16th, 1964 in Boston, and Sonny was in the best shape of his life.
And Ali got the hernia.
3 days before, on Friday the 13th. And that effectively ended Sonny's chances, because here's a 45-year-old man who had worked and worked and worked. And there are rumors, which I don't believe, that the hernia was faked, because all of the Muslims says, this guy's in such great shape, he's going to kill you.
But how are you so sure that your version of what happened in that second fight is true, that Liston did that because he was in fear for the lives of his family? How are you so sure?
Well, I talked to a woman who was close friends with both the Listons and the Lewises, and she couldn't find Geraldine. She was very close to Geraldine on the day.
That's Sonny's wife, in case people don't know.
Right, excuse me, yeah. They were very close, and she was up with her husband and her daughter up in Lewiston, Maine, and on the day of the fight, she couldn't get in touch with Geraldine. And she was worried about it, so she says to Martha Lewis, Joe's wife, Martha, I'm worried, I can't find Geraldine. You know, what could be wrong? She's not picking up her phone. And so Martha says, well, Marilyn, the black Muslims have her and the boy, and Sonny's got to lose the fight if he wants to see them again. Is that first-hand information? No, but that's about as close as you can get, because what happened, I'm certain, is that Sonny told Joe Lewis, because they were very close. Joe told his wife, and Martha told Marilyn.
All right, we're going to take a break. We're going to talk more about the life and death of the great Sonny Liston. Paul Gallender has a new book out. It's worth a read. An amazing amount of research, some great vignettes. Stick around.
Stay up to date on upcoming programs and join the discussion on our Facebook page at facebook.com/Ralston Reports. And now, Ralston Reports.
Welcome back across Nevada to this special edition of Ralston Reports. I like to talk a lot about the brutality of politics on this program, but the brutality of boxing is really something else, and the brutality in the life of Sonny Liston has been documented by Paul Gallender. He's been working more than a quarter century to get the research for his book, Sonny Liston, the real story behind the Ali-Liston fights. I want to go back to some of the stuff early on in the book, and your physical description of Liston is like this guy with this gigantic hands, and you understand why he would have been so powerful. Not only the descriptions of how he moved in the ring and all, but these hands that it was almost frightening to think about as you described. He had these mammoth hands, right?
Everybody who ever met him in person, that's the first thing they tell me, his hands. They couldn't believe it. I had somebody say to me, I saw his hand wrapped. It was just before a fight because his father was the ringside physician taking his vitals. He said it occurred to me that if he hit me in the face, he would hit me in my entire face. The man was born to be a fighter, with the perfect fighter's body, the perfect fighter's temperament, and unfortunately the perfect fighter's upbringing.
Well, he didn't have the perfect fighter's temperament in the sense that you talk a lot about how when he fought angry, he did not fight as well as he should have. It's like what they used to say, the opposite of what they used to say about John McEnroe in tennis. When he got angry, he played better. When a fighter gets angry, they start flailing, they punch too hard, right? That happened to him in several fights.
Well, it happened to him in the Eddie Machen fight.
Right.
Eddie Machen actually kissed him on the neck. That really infuriated Sonny. It happened in the first Ali fight. The only fighter I know that could fight angry and infuriated was Muhammad Ali, because he thought that both Floyd Patterson and Ernie Terrell had insulted him because they wouldn't call him by his new name, and they demeaned his religion. And he went into the ring and he wanted to inflict some serious damage, but he was very, very poised. Right. You don't want to fight on a street fight. If you fight angry, yeah, it's better.
Well, what's interesting about this book, and it really sells it short, I think, the real story behind the Ali-Liston fights, you tell in great detail about the incredible corruption of boxing early in Liston's career, especially the congressional hearings, the influence of the mob, and how he was essentially tainted by that for his entire career. I mean, I used the word earlier, tragic story of Sonny Liston. I mean, the associations with nefarious characters, the bad luck that he had in timing of some of these fights. Right. I mean, it really is a tragic story.
Yeah, and Sonny caught the brunt of the mob associations because the most important individual title in all of sports was the heavyweight championship. The mob ran boxing through the 30s, the 40s, and much of the 50s, mainly because they had control over the managers. Managers could not get a fight, a big-name fight for their fighter, unless they paid off these guys and promised to cut them in on their purse, on part of the fighter's contract, if that fighter was to win the title. Mm-hmm. So along with Jim Norris, who owned all of the arenas, yeah, they pretty much dictated what went on at the higher levels.
Not only dictated what managers would be in play and what wouldn't, but they dictated the outcomes of fights, right? Well,
yeah, especially in the 30s and the 40s, and some in the 50s. And sometimes they drug somebody's water. Like Harold Johnson took a lot of flack. He put up such a bad performance. He was a great fighter, a light heavyweight fighter, Harold Johnson. Somebody tainted his water. Harold Johnson was much too proud of a man to throw a fight. He wouldn't have thrown a fight, but he had no control over that.
But Liston never really got past, and I think this must have haunted him personally too, the cloud of having been a convict, having the mob influence, having cops who just did not trust him and hated him. It was a constant problem for him, right?
Oh yeah, there was like a silent police telegraph that went from one city to another wherever Sonny moved. He got stopped 25 days in a row in Denver, and he loved Denver, by the same two cops. And his sparring partner said that they thought it was a joke. He said it made him ashamed to be from Denver. But the press hated him because Sonny did not like to talk. He used to say, I don't talk to my wife. Why would I talk to a man? And they would keep repeating the same old questions. They would never get past the fact that he was an ex-con. So Sonny really, he did what he knew he had to do. He would answer as few questions as possible. And that treatment even turned African Americans against Sonny.
Right, that is another sad part of the story that you tell. We have to take another break. As with all stories, especially stories with boxers, there's a Vegas angle. I want to talk about the Vegas connection to Sonny Liston and his death. We'll ask Paul Gallender about that when we return.
Find archive programs by going online to mynews3.com and clicking on Ralston Reports.
Welcome back across Nevada to Ralston Reports. How nice to take a break from politics and talk about real life, the real tragic life of Sonny Liston. There's a new book out, and we have the author right here on Ralston Reports talking about it. Of course, there's always a connection to Vegas, and Sonny Liston spent time in Las Vegas, was very close to a guy named Ash Resnick, whose daughter, I have to say, is the producer of this program. I think she has a connection to every story in Vegas, too. But Ash Resnick is a guy I wish I had met because he sounds like just a fascinating character, and he was very close to Sonny Liston.
Yeah, he was, when Sonny came out here, he spent a lot of time with Ash. Ash got him to buy the Kirk Kerkorian's house in the development that they lived in. And before that, everybody was real friendly in that development to the Resnicks. But they didn't like the fact that a black family had moved there.
Right.
And they thought, well, now that if Sonny Liston is moving here, what's next? Joe Louis? And in fact, Joe Louis did move in there after that. I had the pleasure of talking to Ash a couple of times, and he was, when an athlete came to Las Vegas in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, I guess, you would find them around Ash.
Who was a former athlete himself. He was a professional basketball player. Yeah. He loved athletics. He loved sports. He was essentially, I mean, we talk about these fights that took place in Maine. Think about that today, talking about a fight. Ash Resnick helped really to bring boxing to Las Vegas.
Yeah, he promoted the first heavyweight championship fight here, and something like 19 or 20 big fights that he promoted here. So he was a real big figure in Las Vegas, and like I said, it was a pleasure talking to him. He was like an uncle to me.
And of course, he was close to Harry Reid and a lot of other folks. As I said, I wish I had met Ash Resnick. Talk about the end of Sonny Liston's life and how he died, and to some extent the mystery and the myth-making around that too.
What's really unfortunate is that apart from the Lewiston fight and what happened in that, what people want to know about, what was Sonny Liston killed? What happened? Well, that was never a priority of mine. What I did do is address all of the various rumors, and there are like 4 major rumors as to why somebody might have killed Sonny Liston.
Real quickly, we're running out of time. Tell me what.
Well,
tell me what you think.
I concluded that he had suffered a heart attack because he had been in a hospital in December of the year that he died. He died in late December. His body was found about a week later in early January when his wife came home. And so he did have heart problems. He was doing drugs. I don't think he was shooting them because he hated needles. And when you're in really good shape and you do drugs, I think it has a more difficult effect on your body.
Right.
The fact that he was there for so long and nobody reported his death, I think leads to, enhances the rumors that somebody may have killed Sonny. Somebody may have killed him, but there's no statute of limitations on murder. And frankly, I think if somebody did kill Sonny, he probably wasn't surprised by it.
Why would they have killed him?
He was involved in a drug trade, and there was evidently a big drug raid that he had been warned about through the sheriff warned Lem Banker to tell your friend Sonny to stay away from the house.
Big better Lem Banker, in case people don't know who he was.
Oh yeah, Lem Banker.
Well, we're actually out of time, Mr. Gallender. The amazing amount of research in this book, Sonny Liston, the real story behind the Ali Liston fight. I have to tell you, even if you're not a big boxing fan, the human story in here is really something. You've told it marvelously well.
Can I just say one thing?
We're out of time. I'm sorry. Thanks for coming on the program. On the next Ralston Reports, more of the issues that matter to you from people in the know. Thanks for watching.